Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. In a recent article in DNA, Subramanian Swamy has said that Indian Muslims must either proudly accept and acknowledge their Hindu ancestors and legacy or be disenfranchised. To many, that feels like hateful communal prejudice. But how does Dr. Swamy defend himself? That's the key issue I shall put today to Subramanian Swamy himself. Dr. Swamy, you're a Harvard professor, a former law minister. You're at the forefront of the campaign to bring the 2G accused to justice. How do you account for this hateful communal prejudice against Muslims?
No, it's not hateful at all. It's first of all factually correct that Muslims of India have DNA-wise the same DNA as us, and therefore there's nothing wrong with them acknowledging that their ancestors are Hindus. If they say that Hindus are not their ancestors, then who could be their ancestors? Now, after all, we created Pakistan for those Muslims who didn't consider themselves as ready to live with their Hindu brothers and sisters.
I'll come to the core of your argument in a moment's time, but first let me put this to you. Do you dislike Muslims?
How could I? I got a son-in-law who's a Muslim.
That's
he
what
has
I
not
find
complained.
He hasn't complained?
Yeah, he hasn't complained.
Your son-in-law has no objections to your views?
I can't say whether he has objections or not, but he hasn't complained to me
So
over
you're
the years.
saying,
and these are not my new views. These views I've held from the very beginning.
so you're saying to me you don't dislike Muslims?
Why should I dislike them? They are Indians if they acknowledge that their ancestors are Hindus. They are my brothers and sisters.
Do you distrust Muslims?
Why should I? If they say that their ancestors are Hindus, they are as much Indians as I am. Only if they say their ancestors are not Hindus, they are not as good an Indian as I am.
There's a precondition there.
Of course there is a precondition. After all, Pakistan was created on that precondition. You must understand why the Pakistan was created.
Does that precondition mean that you actually are anti-Muslim?
No, how can that be, man?
You don't
So
look upon them.
In fact, I tell you, I found that Muslims themselves have told me, we find nothing wrong. These people are just creating problems maybe because of the 2G scam.
Let's then come to the central prescription in your article published in DNA in July. You write, and I'm going to quote, "If any Muslim acknowledges his or her Hindu legacy, then we Hindus can accept him or her. Others who refuse to acknowledge this can remain in India but should not have voting rights."
That's right.
What's your justification for that?
Because they obviously the whole genesis arises out of partition. The partition was created for two kinds of Muslims: those who can live with the Hindus on the basis of a commonality, and those who said they can't have anything to do with Hindus.
Why is acknowledging your Hindu ancestors or your Hindu legacy proof that you can live with Hindus? Why do you have to make that a core condition?
Because that is the truth. And why should they deny the truth?
Well, hang on a second. It's not the truth, because you don't make that condition for Christians, Buddhists, Jains,
I
Sikhs.
do. It's, if you see,
It's not in that article.
This was written in context of the Bombay, whatever that explosion, that terrorist act. But if you go to my book, Hindutva and National Renaissance, I have said it for Christians too.
But in the article, which is in fact headlined "How to Wipe Out Islamic Terror,"
yes,
the word Christian, Buddhist, Sikh and Jain doesn't feature even once.
Yeah, you can't, because it's got nothing to do. They have nothing to do with that terror.
So you singled out Muslims.
Because it was in the context of Bombay.
In fact, you go one step further. I'm going to once again quote from that DNA article. You say, "Declare India a Hindu Rashtra.
Yes.
Rename India Hindustan as a nation of Hindus and those whose ancestors were Hindus." And then you say you want some 300 mosques removed. Clearly,
you're not quoting me correctly.
I am quoting you correctly.
Please. It was conditional. It was conditional on the goals of the terrorists.
But hang on a moment. You believe that those goals are facts. Therefore, these conditions follow as light follows day.
Exactly. No, if they execute the terrorist acts, then these should follow as a retaliation.
Even the attempt to declare India Hindu Rashtra and call it a nation of Hindus. A nation of Hindus suggests that your concept of India does not have room for Muslims.
No. Hindus doesn't necessarily mean Hindu religious theology.
What does Hindus mean?
Hindus means it's a value system.
Well, hang on a second. Why did you not specify that in your article?
Well, when you write an op-ed, you don't specify everything.
Oh,
you read my book for it.
This is such a critical point.
This is not a critical point from my point of view. It is very well understood. Vivekananda said this. In fact, let me tell you that these views that I have expressed are in different forms in Ambedkar's writings.
No matter whose writings they may be in,
Yes.
you are presenting them today as your views,
Yes.
and you are not differentiating between Hinduism as a way of life and Hinduism as a religion.
I don't talk about Hinduism as a way of life. I talk of Hinduism as a value system. Not a way of life.
Why should Muslims have to subscribe to a value system called Hindu?
Because we Hindus believe that all religions lead to God. Muslims should also believe that.
But Muslims have a right to believe that their religion is their way of going to God. They don't have to subscribe to Hindu values.
Muslim religion is not only that. A Muslim religion also defines what is Darul Islam, Darul Harab and Darul
Let me
Ahad.
put this to you first of all. You write that article purporting to write on behalf of we Hindus.
Yes.
What gives you the feeling that the majority of Hindus agree with you?
Go and talk to them.
What do you mean
Find
go
out
to them?
I would say, judging by all the reaction to my article, the Hindus are overwhelmingly in
Are
support.
you saying that Hindus are communal like you are?
Well, it depends if how you define communal. If you think that what I've written is communal, then I would say all 99% of Hindus are communal.
99% of Hindus are communal.
If your definition of Hindu communalism is what you have defined it.
Let's come
Yes.
to the reasons such as they are,
Yeah.
why you have this particular view and attitude to Muslims. You
Yes.
say, and I'm quoting once again, Muslims of India are being programmed by a slow reactive process
Yes.
to become radical and thus slide into suicide against Hindus.
Yes.
What proof do you have of this?
Who's done the Bombay attack?
What about Swami Asimanand? What about Colonel Purohit? What about Pragya Singh Thakur?
Don't change the subject.
No, it's the same logic applies to both.
First of all, today there is now sufficient evidence that homegrown Muslim individuals have become terrorists.
But there's also sufficient evidence of homegrown Hindus becoming terrorists.
Don't change the subject.
But why
first,
did you change the
first
subject?
let's finish this point. And then I'm coming to everything. I'm ready to take this point. But first let's take the first point, that for the first time I find that there is sufficient evidence with our intelligence system that Muslims are being programmed into becoming terrorists.
For sake of argument only,
Yeah.
I'll accept that you're right. In fact, why then associate the whole Muslim community with
not.
what a small fringe lunatic element is doing?
I am not.
But you are.
No, please read that
No,
statement.
hang on a second.
I'm sorry.
No, hang on a second. Hang on
I'm
a
saying
second.
they are being programmed to slowly. That doesn't mean that it already happened.
No, but you say Muslims of India, not
Yes,
a few
Muslims of India,
not a
they are all
fringe.
being targeted.
All, so there you are. You are associating the whole community
I
with
am
what a
not
small
associating with the
minority are
whole
doing.
community. I am saying they are being targeted as a whole community.
You're going even one step further.
Yes.
Not only are you associating the whole community with what a small minority are doing, but on the basis of that minority, you're demanding that the whole community should be either
That is your
disenfranchised
inference.
if they do not accept
Listen,
Hindu
that
ancestry.
is your inference. That's not what is written
It's
there.
anyone's influence.
Oh, yeah, anyone's.
It's a logical
I can
inference.
produce you 200 people.
It's a logical
for every
inference.
person you produce, I'll produce 200 people who say that is not the
Dr.
inference.
Swamy, it's hard to read your article and come to any other conclusion.
That
You're
is your
blaming the
opinion. That is
majority
your opinion.
for a lunatic fringe.
Listen, you are an opinionated person, so you can come to any opinion. I have written this with full understanding of what I'm writing. I'm telling you that Muslim as a community is being targeted by terrorists, by propaganda, to slowly slide into suicide against Hindus. Now, earlier on it didn't work. Now it has begun to work. So we have to do something about it.
You know, I leave that uncontested only because I've argued with it for so long. People know what I have to say.
Yeah,
but I
so
just point out
they
there
know
will
what
be
I have to say.
millions who disagree.
Well, I
you
don't know about
also
that.
say in your article,
Yes.
Islam will confront Hinduism to complete unfinished business.
That's
Once
right.
again, that may be the view of a small, fringe, fanatic, lunatic minority. Like all religions have such minorities, but clearly it is not the view of the majority of Muslims, and it's not a position endorsed by Islam.
It is the view of terrorists. It is the views of terrorist organizations.
But you don't say terrorists. You say Islam will confront Hinduism.
Yeah. Of course Islam will. This is the Islam theology, which says that if you are Darul Islam, you have to behave in a certain way. For instance, they won't let you build temples in Saudi Arabia.
So Islam is now your target, not terrorists.
There's no question of Islam being target. Islamic thought, whether if you go by Quran, you go by Sirah, and you go by Hadith, exhorts the faithful to finish off the kafir.
In other words, therefore, your target is Islam.
What do you mean by target is Islam? I am educating you about Islam.
What you're really doing...
I'm just telling you what Islam is.
Can I?
I have no problem with target. I have got enough people here in this country. I don't need a Islamic target.
Do you know what you're really doing?
Yeah.
You're sowing seeds of distrust and enmity between Hindus and
That
Muslims.
is your psychoanalysis.
You're dividing India and you're provoking Hindus. And the worst thing is you're doing this knowingly and deliberately.
I have not done any such thing because this is your inference. Now you are entitled to your inference. I have only said what people like Ambedkar have said long before me. I'm saying it in different way, but it's all there. We have seen it, it's there, and we have to recognize it.
You know, in your DNA article, you claim that you are in fact devising a strategy to deter terrorism. The paradox is that the seeds of distrust and enmity that you're sowing is actually going to create the basis of fresh terror.
That is an accusation which has no foundation.
It's an inference,
it's easy to make these
accusations. It flows from what you're doing.
These accusations being thrown at me, nothing ultimately came out of it. All kinds of people have whipped themselves into a frenzy, I think sometimes synthetic anger, but what came of it?
Let me put this to you. Is this a tactic to ingratiate yourself with the RSS and secure their political support?
No, I'm long past that. I've already won over the RSS heart a long time ago.
Let's come back to the point you made at the beginning of this interview. You said that you had a Muslim son-in-law.
Yeah.
Your wife, in fact, is Parsi.
Yeah.
How do they respond to the conditions you attach for minorities? You say clearly that if minorities do not accept with pride their Hindu ancestors and their Hindu legacy, they should be disenfranchised. How does your Parsi wife and your Muslim son-in-law accept that?
Well, first of all, Parsis have no difficulty. In fact, when they landed in India, they signed a contract.
But they don't have a Hindu ancestry, they don't have Hindu legacies.
How do you know?
They don't. They came from Iran. They came from Persia.
They came, 90 men and 6 women came. You don't know Parsi history. You see, don't make wild guesses.
So Parsis also have Hindu ancestors?
Of course they do. They do.
Is your wife prepared to accept that?
Well, you ask her.
No, but I'm asking you.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to drag my wife into this.
Is your son-in-law prepared to accept that?
The conversation between husband and wife is privileged. Do you know that?
Is your son-in-law prepared to accept that?
Why should I tell you that? You ask him.
Aren't you in danger of...
Why don't you interview him and ask him?
Aren't you in danger of dividing your family?
Well, ask the family. I have not had this problem. This is not my new views. They may have been written in the first time in a newspaper in this form, but I've written books about it. I've been saying this from the day I joined Jansa.
Are you proud of these views?
Of course, otherwise I wouldn't. There's no question of proud. These are my views. I think the people of India are proud of it.
Is your family embarrassed by them?
They have not told me so.
Are they just
Why
being
don't you talk to my family?
Are they just being polite?
Well, that you find out from them. You interact with some of them. They happen to be in your channel. Why don't you ask them?
All right, Dr. Swamy, let's take a break there. When we come back, I'm going to change subjects completely. I'm going to talk to you about Sonia Gandhi and the letter that you sent to the Prime Minister seeking his permission to prosecute her under the Prevention of Corruption Act.
That's right.
Stay with us. Part 2 will be just as dramatic as Part 1. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and a pretty dramatic interview with Subramanian Swamy. Dr. Swamy, let's come to the letter that you wrote to the Prime Minister on the 15th of April seeking his permission to prosecute Sonia Gandhi under the Prevention of Corruption Act. What response have you had from the Prime Minister?
Well, he has sent me just now a letter saying it's premature, and therefore he didn't find it sufficient basis to give me permission.
When you say he sent you just now, how soon is just now?
Well, I was in America, so it must have come in the last week of July, I think.
And you saw it only on your return?
Yes.
A couple of days ago?
That's right.
What does the letter say?
Just said that it is a premature thing and we don't find any basis therefore to proceed ahead.
In other words, he has refused to give permission.
Well, that's the reading of it. It doesn't matter because I never thought that he'll ever give me permission. I just wanted to go through the process. Now I'll go to the Supreme Court.
Now the process requires you to give the Prime Minister 3 months to reply.
Yes, it's more than 3 months now.
And now that he's refused at the end of that 3-month period, what do you intend to do
I
next?
intend to go to the Supreme Court on it.
You will go to the Supreme Court?
I did it for Raja, the same procedure.
So you will file a case in the Supreme Court seeking
sanction to prosecute Sonia Gandhi
under the Prevention of Corruption
Act. Yes.
How confident are you that the Supreme Court will admit this, given the fact that the Prime Minister has refused to give you permission?
I can never prejudge the Supreme Court. They are wise judges, and they have, I am quite impressed with them. And but I think the prima facie case is very strong.
Well, you say the prima facie case is very strong, and for those who haven't had the benefit of reading your letter of April the 15th, let me summarize briefly. You allege, and I'm underlining the word allege, that Sonia Gandhi has benefited from BOFAs, that she's benefited from Iraq food for oil deals. You claim that she's been the recipient of payoffs from the Russian KGB. You again allege that she has bank accounts abroad. And finally, you've been claiming for several years that she's also involved in the illegal export of antiquities. But what evidence do you have for any of this?
Well, you want me to give speak about all of them or any one of them?
Tell me first
of all about time factor.
Absolutely. Tell me first of all about the claim that she has received payoffs from the KGB.
Well, that's the Russian. There's no KGB now. There's something called FSI. So when these documents, you see, what happened is that the Americans took out all these documents from everybody. They literally stole the KGB library and then photostated and put it in various university libraries. Now, those documents I produced in the Delhi High Court in a writ petition. Delhi High Court had issued notice to the CBI. At that time, the spokesman of the successor organization of the KGB said, yes, we had given money because the whole family was friendly to us.
So in other words, these are documents from the KGB,
yes,
authenticated by the Americans?
Not authenticated,
but put on websites by the Americans?
Yes. In the libraries, it's available.
And therefore, these documents are available in libraries?
And they are available in Delhi High Court.
Number two, you have also said that she has bank accounts outside the country.
Yes.
What proof do you have of that?
Well, the proof I have given there is that Schweitzer Illustrated, which is highly respected.
But that goes back to 1990, 1991.
Yes, so she had it then.
But how do you know you can rely on them?
It doesn't matter. On them. Well, this magazine has produced it as a consequence of the American pressure on Switzerland to expose the
magazine
Marcos.
Could be wrong. The magazine could be false. The magazine could be lying.
Then somewhere, because they have not only named the Rajiv Gandhi family.
But you're going on very slender evidence. Stolen KGB documents, not authenticated, magazines that are not confirmed and corroborated.
Listen, you are not paying attention. That's the problem with you. I had said that the spokesman of the successor to the KGB went on record to say that yes, we had given money to the family because they were friendly to us.
And the spokesman of the successors of the KGB will stand by that today? Have you got any confirmation?
Why should I? This is for the government to investigate. After all, the High Court had issued a notice to the CBI to go and find out.
You also claim that she's been involved in illegal export of antiquities. In fact,
yes,
you've been saying that, if I recall correctly, for decades.
Yes, I've been saying KGB also for decades.
What proof do you have of that?
Not decades.
What proof do you have of this illegal export?
Well, I have given the evidence of that, and I can tell you that she and Naveen Chawla's wife, they were actively involved in it.
You've just named someone else.
Yes, I did.
Are you sure that's not libel?
Well, please prosecute me. I'll be happy. I enjoy going to court to defend these things.
You may enjoy going to court, but is it right and fair that on the slenderest of evidence that you're taking people to court, naming them, possibly libeling them?
You are sitting in judgment of it. You are not equipped to judge what is slender evidence and what is sufficient evidence.
But can you be the judge of your own evidence?
So far, whenever I've gone to court, I have managed to convince the court that I have prima facie evidence. Otherwise, don't go to court.
Can you be the best judge of your own evidence?
I am not the best judge. I have to have an appreciation before I go to court. And the court is the final authority, and court has always upheld.
When will you be going to court?
I'll go to court as soon as I find time. I've got 2G on my hands. You see, I'm not the head of the CBI.
So this will happen only after 2G is over?
I can say when I'll go to court. I'm not going to give you a timetable.
You just hinted that this is not imminent.
I didn't hint at all. That is your surmise. You are a great one at making surmises. Will
your decision to go to court be at all affected by the fact that Sonia Gandhi is abroad? She's going through surgery. She could be fairly seriously ill.
Certainly, it will not be as enjoyable if she's not in hospital.
It will not be as enjoyable
if she is.
So you look upon this as enjoyment?
No, I certainly means if when you are prosecuting somebody who's been corrupt and they are lying in a hospital, it's not something that you would like to do. That's obvious.
Is that a let-out clause?
There's nothing let out here. This is humanity. We are humans. You may not have been used to humans in your life, but we are all humans.
At a point when you sound human after part one, where you sounded distinctly less than human, and you're smiling, a pleasure talking to you.